Hey everyone, my name is Gothix, and today we're going to be discussing representation in woke Hollywood. But before we get into that, I just want to let everyone know that this video is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped.com hooked me up with their performance package kit, which includes all kinds of grooming goodies. Let's take a look. A lot of stuff in here. This package includes their new Lawnmower 3.0, which is a waterproof trimmer with skin-safe technology made to reduce nicks and cuts, which is really good because this one time I almost sliced my finger off in the shower. No bueno. No bueno. It also comes with their Weed Whacker, which is a nose and ear hair trimmer. I don't think I personally have that problem here, but... as well as a ball deodorant and a ball toner spray, which I'll probably give to my boyfriend because, you know, I don't have those. But they do smell really good, though. Come to think of it, since this is a video about representation, I think Manscaped should take my advice and maybe come out with a female version for these. Something like, I don't know, coochie cologne, perhaps. For a limited time, you'll get all of this plus 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs. Go to manscaped.com today and you'll get 20% off plus free international shipping when you use promo code GOTHIX20. Your balls and your body, and perhaps your coochie will thank you for it. Representation, by definition, is pretty much the act of having your image or likeness represented. So, for example, seeing another black woman in my favorite TV series would qualify as representation for me because she represents me as a black woman. On the surface, this seems like a good concept, but personally, I find a lot of problems can arise from advocating for something like this. Just to be clear, I have no problems with diversity. However, I believe that it's something that should come naturally and not by way of angry Twitter mob or performative activism. So for today's video, I thought it would be cool to go over the most common arguments that I hear in favor of representation and provide my rebuttals for each of those arguments. My hope is at the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of why some people object to this concept rather than chalking up their opposition to being racist, sexist, or homophobic, which seems to be the go-to explanation these days. If you're familiar with my channel, you've probably heard me talk about how I was canceled for my opinions regarding the Little Mermaid. Just to catch you up to speed, Disney announced that the pale-skinned, red-haired fictional fish would be portrayed by a black actress in the live-action reboot. As someone who grew up loving the movie, I wasn't particularly happy with Disney's decision to race bend, aka tokenize a pre-existing character. And of course, when I was honest regarding my opinion on this, Black Twitter wasted no time labeling me as anti-black because of my problematic views. So here's the first argument that I typically hear in favor of these types of changes. I want my black daughter to grow up seeing a hero that looks like her in the movies. Okay, so I'm not a parent, although I do plan on having kids at some point. And no, YouTube, no, I am not taking applications, thank you, but I have that covered. That being said, when I do have kids, I'd hope that they would see me, their mother, as a hero, rather than seeking out a fictional character to be their hero. It's my responsibility to raise my future child and teach them to be strong and encourage them to be great. I don't believe it's a mermaid's job to do that. The other problem that I have with an argument like this is that having a person represent you solely based on skin color is just that, skin color. Do I relate to every black person I meet? Of course not, because if I did, I'd never be called an Uncle Tom or anti-black to begin with. Black people are not a monolith and we don't all think and behave in the same way. So something as far as representation, I find, puts a focus on a person's skin color rather than what personality or what values and ambitions that person has. I can't change the fact that I was born black, so if I were to remove that attribute about me, what else would I have to offer? This is why I've never had a problem relating to a character in Hollywood, because naturally I relate to others on the basis of my interest or my personality. The other argument that I have against tokenizing an existing character is the nostalgia aspect. From a business standpoint, making changes like this has been known to upset the existing fan base for several reasons. So when Hollywood announced this change, I couldn't help but feel like this was a cash grab. I have the same exact criticism for something like Brandy's Cinderella. As a kid, I couldn't help but wonder why Cinderella had a pretty intense tan all of a sudden. Not a terrible movie, but again, I thought that it was just a cash grab. What I've noticed is that these types of race-bending reboots don't tend to do very well as the original because of the nostalgia aspect that I'm talking about. And what about the white folks who already feel represented by Ariel or Cinderella on the basis of skin color? Does representation matter only when it applies to you? And I know what you're going to say about this. Well, white people don't need to be represented because they're already in so many movies. Exactly. There are so many movies. So why wouldn't Hollywood make a new movie instead of relying on a reskin? From a creative aspect, race bending a pre-existing character goes against everything I believe as an artist because it stifles creativity. We actually talked about this in an episode of my podcast. Take a look.
What we have to first understand is that these, and I know people that work at Disney, right? High up. And the companies are too afraid to take a risk on anything that's not an established story or brand, right? So Little Mermaid has been proven, time and tested. All right, here's a story. We know it works. Let's just remix the bitch, right? And that's what these content conglomerates do. They just remix some shit and just spit it back out at you instead of trying to come up with something new, right? Coming up with a great new story and empowering new content creators and taking a chance on a lot of new content creators and ideas they have. They won't take a chance. They'd rather take the budget and put it behind something that's already proven, which from a business sense, I totally get it. It works. But from a creative perspective, it goes against everything that creatives believe in. You got to understand that when you take that role, the white man giving you leftovers. That's it's like it's like after he finished eating and you give the bones to the dog. That's y'all. When the white man giving you the bones, like, all right, we done finished eating off this Little Mermaid thing. Here, you can have the bones now, niggas.
Sloppy seconds.
In addition to this, when a writer puts race at the forefront of a story, I find that the story tends to lack. Just look at what's happening with the newest season of Batwoman. The fact that DC chose a black woman to replace the actress in the midst of Black Lives Matter is a little sus to me. And regardless if this was or wasn't DC's intent to take advantage of the BLM hype, the ratings don't lie. Of course, I won't fault the actress for this happening, but let's consider why the new season is doing so bad. Like I said earlier, you have the argument of nostalgia. So when Hollywood decides to turn a historically white character to a black character, it's very likely that the nostalgic fans are going to push back. Remember when Aunt Viv from The Fresh Prince went from this to this? Okay, remember how the fans reacted to that change? They're the same skin color and people were still bugging out. Now imagine a fan of a historically white character responding to them changing it to a black character, just for perspective. The other problem with tokenizing a pre-existing character is that the focus on the person's skin color, image, or gender identity takes away from the story. When I started digging for interviews or articles regarding the Black Batwoman, a lot of what I found were emphasizing how she had curly hair or the fact that she was the first Black Batwoman. But what about the story? Shouldn't that be the most important part? If all the focus is on how many check boxes can be ticked off for the sake of representation, what happens to the production value? How do these companies intend on keeping their dedicated consumers coming back? Which reminds me of my next point. I find that many people who applaud and push for these types of changes aren't actually comic book consumers. That being said, I think that most people who skip over the comics and go straight to the movies or TV series might not have a problem with the tokenized character because, well, they don't have a point of reference, thus no attachment to that character. Which is kind of like me and the Spider-Man movies, for example. I never read the comics, so I took the movies for what they were, a pretty good movie. And before you start furiously typing at me in the comments about the Black Spider-Man, aka Miles Morales, and how he's doing so well in movies and gamings, let me remind you that Miles Morales is its own character, separate from Peter Parker, so it's not the same thing. When we break all of this down, Hollywood's left with a choice to either tokenize a character, thus running the risk of pissing off their existing consumer base, or investing resources into developing a brand new character with a brand new storyline. Black people, I want to talk to you for a second. Right here, right here. I want you to know that you deserve more. Because if you truly want to be represented, do yourself a favor and don't settle for someone's sloppy seconds. Refusing to settle could lead to the creation of an iconic character, such as Black Panther, for example, but it will also keep the existing consumer base happy. Everybody wins. But hold on for a second, because we're not done here. Creating brand new characters with brand new storylines can still backfire if it's not done correctly. My friend Clifton said it perfectly in this tweet. Audiences don't hate diverse characters. What they hate is being slammed as bigots for rejecting bad work from pretentious, unskilled activists posing as writers. If the demography of your character becomes more important than the story, your story will probably suck. So let's take a look at another case study revolving Marvel's first non-binary characters, Snowflake and Safe Space. Okay, it should go without saying that these characters were not well received by the majority. There's a difference between being a non-binary superhero and a superhero that happens to be non-binary. There's a difference between being a black superhero versus a superhero that happens to be black. And this isn't to say that creating an original superhero that happens to be non-binary won't receive criticism, because let's be real, everyone's a critic and you can't make everyone happy. But I'd argue that Hollywood would be able to make most people happy by focusing their resources on original characters backed by experienced writers, not activists. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you want me to make a second part to this. Perhaps we can do something like representation in the context of the workplace or politics or content creation, something like that. And of course, a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star members for sponsoring another video. My name is Gothix and I will see you in the next one. Bye!